Oh, and I have to share my slides here. Wait, there we go. We're probably live, and I don't even know it yet. Let me get my screen share on. The joy of technology.
Yes.
Oh, I want to go back. Are we live? Are we live? Those of you watching as we figure out how to do everything, welcome! Welcome to the live stream. Oh, there we go. Okay, we should be live. Let me double check my handy dandy cell phone.
We are oh yeah, we are live.
Okay, you can see it. Good, good. Yay! Well, welcome everybody. This is the Conversations to Raise the Collective Conscious. This is a new weekly. I don't know what you call this. It's a Q&A, interview, conversations that we have here in Midwest Elevation. Obviously, the goal is to do all we can to help lift each other up as much as possible, which has become more and more important as the weeks go by here in 2020. I would love to introduce you all today to our guest, Eliza David. You may know her by the name Kelly, too. And my dog. Let me introduce you to my dog. Come here. Nobody's actually here. It's okay. Whenever I say hello. Anyway, Eliza David is a writer. Hold on. Come here. I went to go pick him up. He's like, no, don't touch me, Mom. You are an amazing writer. You work for the library, which is one of the coolest gigs ever. And you have been hosting this digital series on Facebook as well since the coronavirus took over, called Love, Light, and Lit, which I absolutely love. So if anybody's interested in that, go check that out on the North Liberty Library's Facebook page. But literature and writing is something that actually brought us together. When we have a funny meet story, which I remembered this morning. So I teach at the junior high level, and I run a group, a leadership group. And one afternoon, I invited Eliza David to come and talk about writing and literature with my group of students, who of course are high energy, and she came in and we kind of got started, and things were a little, I don't know, not quite settled. There seemed to be
It was shaky.
It was shaky. It was a little shaky. And there seemed to be something going on between two students across the room, and I wasn't really sure. And then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose, and they were on the floor pummeling each other. And I was like, what? And everybody's yelling. And here we are with our guest speaker, and she is like, yeah, it happens. It's all good. I would have been mortified.
It's okay. And I kindly moved out of the way of the fray. Let me just let these gentlemen do what they came to do. And I kind of stepped out of the way and let law enforcement and various faculty and staff do what they needed to do to alleviate the situation. So all in a day's work. It's okay.
Yeah. And I thought for sure you're never coming back. And and that's
been I think that was 2-3 years ago. And here we are.
And we've met and hung out on other occasions, and I gotta say, I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today. So the title of our conversation today is Spiritual Practice in Real Life. And a spiritual practice can be whatever it is that spiritual means for you, right? We're not talking about a religious connotation. you know, whatever that means for you. How do you get that practice going in real life? And you have been such an inspiration to me, I have to say, because you know, I've been witness to, especially, you know, your Facebook posts and everything, to really talk about your journey into your spiritual practices, whether it's tarot reading or yoga or, you know, any number of personal self-growth things. And I just, and you remind me often of the things that are important to remember, especially when life is just crazy. And before we get started, I do want to remind everybody, that there's a bit of a lag between our Zoom webinar and Facebook.
And I will say, I have gotten a couple of Facebook notifications with people saying that they are having trouble viewing it. So we may want to, I'm in the Facebook now. Do we want to say, oh, it says the live video hasn't started yet. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh, somebody's watching it, because I saw a watch party. So somebody's watching it.
Somebody's out there. Let's see. Let's see what we got. Let's see. Oh, I can't. So in the group, or in the event.
Yeah, in the event, we want to tell them to go to the Midwest Elevation way.
Yeah. Are you doing that, or am I doing
that? Yeah,
I'm
doing it. I'm doing it too.
All right. So those of you who are watching us live in Midwest Elevation already, thank you. There is a bit of a lag time. We would love your comments, your questions, anything that we are going to be talking about today. Let us know in the comments, and we're
gonna figure it out. We're gonna get it done. No worries, y'all. No worries, y'all. We're gonna get it done. So let's go ahead and get started.
All right. All right.
Okay, I think we're good. I hope we're good.
I know, I do too.
All right, we gotta get started though. Let's chat. Let's get to the.
If you're not in, if you missed it, there will be a YouTube link later. We will it'll all work out. If you can't join us live, it's all good. If you're not in, if you missed it, hey, that lag time is pretty good. All right, I've muted it now. Okay. So, spiritual practice in real life. So when all this is happening, how do we come back?
How do we come back? Well, that's a good question. And like I said on your slide, you know, there are 3 levels, at least as I've witnessed in my life, of where spiritual practice comes in. Your personal level, meaning your relationships, your situationships, whatever, any one-on-one that you have with another human being, whatever soul contract you have with another human being, that would be personal. Number 2 is professional. So this is your work. Even if you work independently, you still have to have professional interactions with other humans. If you work in an office setting, if you're working from home right now because of the pandemic, those professional relationships also need a spiritual practice behind them. And then the 3rd category is individual, your spiritual practice within yourself. What's your relationship like with whatever higher spirit you acknowledge? God, Allah, universe, inner being. What's your relationship like with that? What's your relationship like with your ego? What's your relationship like with your soul? What's your relationship like with your intuition? So those 3 areas are where I find spiritual practice is most prominent and needed. And as you mentioned, the first rule of Fight Club is that you just find whatever works for you. There are so many ways to engage spiritual practice. There's meditation, there's yoga, there's honestly reading can be therapeutic, can be a spiritual practice. Just sitting in breath can be a spiritual practice. Prayer, going to church, going to the synagogue, going to the mosque, whatever that looks like for you, use it and own it. Your spiritual practice may not look like your best friend's spiritual practice, but you are both on your own specific spiritual journeys. So it's important that you find what exactly works for you. Like for me, I try to start my day in meditation. Most days, if I'm running late because I'm putting on a face or dealing with children, then I try to steal at least 10 minutes during my work day to pop in my earbuds, listen to some binaural beats, and get centered at some point in the day. So meditation really keeps me grounded. I have a yoga practice that's been on and off since I was 8 years old. I'm 41 for, transparency's sake, but it's much more on these days than off. And so I try to do yoga, especially these days, on my deck outside 3 to 4 times a week, just for 30 minutes each time. And then I also practice with tarot. I dabble in divination. I've been working with tarot cards for about 3 years. I'm teaching myself runes. So if there's anyone out there that has any idea how runes work, please comment below, because now I want to be your friend, because I'm working on that. But yeah, it really is first and foremost important to find what spiritual practice works for you so that you can apply them in those 3 areas.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you said about using it and owning it. Like it doesn't, regardless of what other people are doing around you, if it works for you, if it's something that, allows you to get the mind quiet and kind of get into your body and, see the world with an open heart and an open mind, and view your relationships from that open-hearted perspective, then that's your path for you, and that's what works. The other thing that I wanted to double back on is the idea of the ego, right? And I think that most people have a general idea of what the ego is, based on high school psychology class or whatever, right? That we have this part of our brain that exists, about our personality, but the ego, I think, as we talk about it too, in relationship to the soul, or like, is so much more than just personality.
Yeah, I think ego, first and foremost, everyone has an ego. Every single human being on this planet has an ego. An ego is essentially identity. I am African American. I am a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a librarian. I'm an author. Those are all statements that come from identity and relate to ego. Because I think sometimes people, I think most people, including myself, before I started reading more about what the ego really is, one great book to read about ego is Untethered Soul. Anyone who has like 5 minutes of conversation with me about ego is going to hear about The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. That book will tell you everything you need to know about your ego. It tells you everything you need to know about the ongoing soundtrack of voices that go on in your head, and why that is not real, why thoughts are not real. And it really does delve into what ego truly is. And it is a wonderful education, because once you really realize what ego really is about, it's really about identity. You can begin to make friends with your ego. For a long time, I really did lead with my ego. And I really did lead with protecting myself by my identity, by my many identities. These days, I'm more friends with my ego. So when I feel like my ego wants to take over my actions in a way that's not serving myself or others, your ego can serve you in 2 ways. It can serve you in a way that it can serve you in a way that really serves who you are. Meaning, your ego is the part of your psyche that tells you not to walk down a dark alley,
right?
or it tells you
There's some protection there.
Right. That is, your ego is the part of you that says, that sees somebody looking kind of suspicious, and you're like, that's probably not what I want to do right now. But, and that's when it serves you. When your ego doesn't serve you is when when ego convinces you to engage fear. And fear comes out in many different ways. Fear is sadness, regret, resentment.
Yes.
Pettiness, my number one fear reactor, pettiness. I can be very petty. People who know me know me. People who know I can be petty. And rage, anger. So fear can show up in a lot of different ways, and that's when ego is not serving you well. So it's important that it's not so much quiet the ego. It really is make friends with your ego. You know how you have that one friend who, helps you get into like some ratchet stuff, but you're like, okay, right now is not the time for that. Sometimes you have to I tell my ego all the time, okay, girl, right now is not the time for these thoughts. We don't have time for that. That's not constructive. It's not serving us. I thank you. I thank my ego. I say, thank you for looking out for me.
Yes.
I know you want me to, send that text message and be mean, and I thank you for that, because you're just trying to protect me, because that's all the ego really wants to do is protect you. But what kind of protection is it giving you in that moment? And that's why it's so important to pause and reflect and see what the ego is really trying to tell you.
Yeah, what's underneath that like initial instinct to say something or do something. And I think it's something that, attaching, your identity obviously is something that grows and changes as you grow and change, through childhood and through adulthood. And so, at least for me, for the longest time, I thought, well, that is me. That's who, the ego is who I am. These parts of me are who I am. And I'm going to, dig my heels in and say, and be like, well, that's just me, and the rest of the world has to deal with it, or like that's or whatever. I don't need to whatever it is, or that justifies the actions or the parts of the relationships that we have with other people, for better or for worse.
Right, and that's right, because with relationships, it's specifically, I would say, between, when it comes to personal, I like to look at it in 3 segments. In relationships, meaning platonic or romantic, actually with romantic relationships, with your friendships, and also with parenting. And for those who, those are some areas that definitely, where ego can definitely take center stage. And one thing that I used to say a lot, that used to be a part of my vocabulary, is that's just how I am. I'm definitely one of those people that blames my toxic behavior on my zodiac sign. I'm Aquarius. There's a lot of toxicity there. But at the end of the day, when it comes to your relationships, it's important to understand where the other person is coming from. Listen to hear. Listen, make sure, there's one thing to listen to someone, to give someone, ear space, but are you hearing what they're saying? Or is your ego standing in the way of that message? And sometimes we figure that out way after the argument's over, way after the conflict's over, but it's so important to think, am I hearing what my partner is saying? Am I hearing what, my friend is saying? Am I hearing what my child is saying? Because sometimes ego can block that message.
Right. That's where you're already sort of creating the counter argument in your head as they're talking.
Yeah, I do that sometimes. Like, I still do it sometimes. Like, like I know what I'm gonna say when I'm gonna say it, and sometimes, again, that's what Brene Brown calls, okay, Brene Brown's gonna come up a lot here, y'all, because I'm all about Brene. But Brene Brown says that's rehearsing vulnerability. And that's just rehearsing vulnerability, when you're trying to get your words together before you have, because that means you're coming to the conflict to be right. You're not coming to the conflict to listen. You're not coming to the conflict to hear what the other person has to say. When you're trying to figure out what your clapbacks, when you're trying to figure all that out before you talk to someone about a conflict that's brewing, that's just rehearsing vulnerability. And all that is you're already coming into the conversation incorrectly. And especially in this day and age, with all the political stuff that's going on, I've seen, and unfortunately I've participated a little bit too, but some of my friends that I see that are participating in the rhetoric, they're coming there to be right.
Yeah, and that's it.
And as much as I agree with them,
right?
Because I've cleaned up my friends list so that I live in the bubble. So I live in my own personal political bubble, and I'm okay with that. But I know they're trying to be right instead of trying to hear what the other person is saying. And the same thing is going on with the person that they're in conflict with. So in this day and age, this is why spiritual practice, especially right now when it comes to relationships and your personal interactions with others, come to hear, not to be right. Take that time to pause and say, okay, I'm engaging this person, but am I engaging this person because I want to be right, or am I engaging this person because I want to hear what they're saying?
Right.
Ask yourself that question before you engage, and then act accordingly.
Right. And not engaging is a perfectly fantastic idea if it is, especially online.
Oh, yes. No is a complete sentence. I've said this, I'm the kind of person between no and okay. I feel like, I have two children. I have an 8th grader and a 4th grader. And if I can tell that these are children who came from my body, if I can tell these two people no and okay, then I can tell your big grown self no and okay too, period. Like, sometimes it's okay to disengage, but then that's also about ego saying, okay, you want to be right. So you're going to argue and, finger bang this thing to death until you can be right. And is that serving you? Just be really, and that's where it comes to being clear and honest with yourself, and where ego comes into play. Is this serving your ego, or is this serving you?
Mm-hmm. Right. The higher self you, the
higher self. I like to say the highest version of yourself that you can get to that day.
Right. Oh my God, that's perfect. Yes. Because it does vary. There are some days where I have no problem looking at the big picture, and there are some days where I can't even, it's right here. And that's all I can see.
That's all I can see. And that is my prayer. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is thank goodness that everybody's still breathing, because usually I'm the first one up, so everybody's snoring, so everyone's breathing. And my second prayer after I say thank you is, may I please be the highest version of myself that I can grasp today. I don't know what that's going to look like. And you have to embrace groundlessness there, because you don't know what that's going to look like, because you don't know who in your personal relationships is going to try you. You don't know who in your professional relationships is going to bring a conflict to you. And knowing that, when you're having intentional listening with someone, another thing you want to remember is that every person is a lesson. Every person is a lesson. There's this great book. It's called Soul Contracts by Carolyn Myss. Yes, a fave. If you can find it on audiobook, my Iowa City people, if you get it from Digital Johnson County, from the Iowa City Public Library, the audiobook is a live talk of her talking about this book. So it's not the book itself, but it's a live talk of Carolyn Myss talking about soul contracts. And what soul contracts is all about, it states, Carolyn Myss's theory is that every single person you come in contact with, you have a soul contract with. Your boss from 5 years ago, the lady in the supermarket that you had a conversation with in the checkout line, of course, your friends and family and neighbors. Everyone has a soul contract. And it's important to understand that within that contract is a lesson. When people keep coming back into your life, now, if somebody keeps coming back into your life and you don't want them in your life, then you have a law enforcement issue. Right? You have an issue where you may need to law enforcement. But if you have a person in your life who you are just struggling, it's a challenging relationship. I have a few of those where it's a challenging relationship. It's a challenging friendship. There is a lesson there that you still need to be taught. And sometimes you need to learn that lesson 3, 4, 5 times.
Right.
But every person is a lesson. Every friendship, every relationship is a lesson.
That's beautiful. I just like want to breathing into that for a minute to like understand uh, like I mean because
Yes.
we all have those challenging people and what it takes it and it's very hard work. I mean it's simple but it is not easy at all. And you really have to it's really looking in the mirror when you're being challenged.
Oh yeah. Every person that you have a conversation with is a reflection of yourself.
Yeah.
There is one friendship that I have, and I've known this person since I was a teenager. And every time I talk with them, we have good talks. But then there are some times where I'm like, oh my goodness, this person just really needs to get their shit together. Like, what is going on? What is the hold up here? And then I have to pause and think to myself, well, what is that relationship trying to tell me about myself? Am I judging this person because they are where they are in their spiritual journey and it may not necessarily be on the level that I think I'm on?
Right.
Is that ego stepping in? Yes, that is ego stepping in, judging this person's journey, judging where this person is. And from there, I really do have to understand, well, this is a reflection of, my judgment of them is really a reflection of some of the harsher self-judgment that I have on myself.
Yes. Oh my
And
God.
it's a reflection of the standards that I hold for myself. Yep. And when I see someone not hitting those standards, I think to myself, well, that's how I would feel if I wasn't hitting those standards that I've set for myself. So yeah, every relationship, especially your most difficult relationships, your most difficult friendships are absolutely a reflection of some of the hangups that you have about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is what makes them so challenging. We don't know. We don't always want to look in the mirror.
No, we don't. And we don't. It's so much easier to judge ourselves and to judge others.
No. Where'd you go? Your shadow self.
There we go. Okay, I'm gonna go right there. All right. So it's all right. So it's so much easier to judge someone else rather than really holding yourself accountable.
Yeah.
And that's where ego comes in. And that's not serving us. That's the way ego doesn't serve us. So take your time, and in any conflict that you have with another human being, my number one advice that I've heard time and time again is, what is this trying to teach me? What is this exchange trying to teach me about myself?
Yeah.
Why is this touching my thorn? Again, shout out to Untethered Soul. What is it about this situation that's touching my thorn? Why is this touching my stuff? And then go from there.
Yeah.
Relationships can teach you a lot. And with parenting specifically, there's this meme going around, a lot of the like mommy pages and stuff that says, you should apologize to your children. And that is not something that is commonly done. It's something that's being given more thought, and it's important to apologize to your children. And so I try to keep that in mind too when I'm having any kind of conflicts with my children, because ultimately, in most cases, your children just want to make you proud.
Yeah.
They don't want you on their back, but they also want to make sure that you are proud and that you're happy with what they're doing. And your children are older than my children, so I'm going to let you take the floor a little bit on that one, because my children are still young enough where I'm like, okay, it's okay. But now it's like, especially as my son becomes a teenager, it's really like, oh my gosh, oh, my light.
I know.
There we go. There's some light right there. Okay, cool. Especially as my son is now a teenager, he'll be 14 in December. He's getting teenagery, and it's like, oh my God, what happened to my baby?
Yeah. Well, and there's joy and pain, because they become like the coolest people to hang out with. But also, when they're younger, it's easier and they're more forgiving of, when you have clashes. And when you're just having a bad day and the only reason you're saying no is because you don't want to deal with something or whatever, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely as teenagers, you really have to come at it from a perspective of, obviously you're still the adult. And so managing your own internal like temperature is just as important. But apologizing, I think, becomes harder the older that they get.
Yeah.
Um, just because you're looking at them in the eye, and they're very much, and the reason like teenagehood gets a bad rap is they're very much trying to figure out who they are, what they're going to identify with, who they want to be, who they don't want to be, and how they can distance themselves from you in a sense, because we're the uncool parents, even if we are the coolest parents.
Yeah, I'm starting to get into like uncool territory, and I'm certainly not used to that. Now, my daughter still thinks I'm the coolest person on the planet, right. But I know she's already kind of side-eyeing me a little bit too. She'll be 9 next week. But yeah, it's so odd when you have, with parenting, it's like, especially parenting, I will say, especially parenting children of color and navigating them through what's going on in the public, sphere, that's been interesting. Again, just like I say, I live in the bubble, in my own personal political bubble online. Also,
Uh-oh, you froze. Are we back?
Having the kids watching it and everything, having the kids watching it is like, they'll always be asking us questions because they really aren't used to this kind of rhetoric, and that's,
I can't tell if it's my Wi-Fi. Oh, okay. We keep freezing. I don't know if you can hear me. And we're frozen. We'll get her back. Oh, are you there?
Okay, I'm there. Awesome. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Did you hear anything? Did it like record?
It totally was like, no. I heard rhetoric and then it kept freezing, and I was like, I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi or your Wi-Fi.
I don't know either, but my Wi-Fi looks good. I think we're good. Okay. So, what was I saying? So I'm in my own, I'm in my own political bubble at home, and we, so the kids, our kids see all these things and they're like, what's going on? And then they start to get their own ideas about, BLM, and get their own ideas about law enforcement, and get their own ideas about the president, and, about the election and things like that. So that's when parenting really does become a contact sport, where you really have to engage those conversations. And specifically for me, as a Black woman with Black children, with biracial children, it is important that I talk to them about that, because they are a small minority here in Iowa City where we live. So, and as my son gets older, my son will be driving in 2 years, which really just scares the ever-loving hell out of me. Wow. I don't know if I would want to be on the road with my son behind the wheel. He's a Sagittarius, and they have anger issues. And this is how my son is when he plays GTA. like, I don't want that to be him, like, behind the wheel, because not only is it unsafe, but as a child of color, being out in the world, especially a boy of color, there's just a lot that goes into that. And it's, that's where instilling trust with your children is part of that parenting relationship. Understanding that apologies work both ways, because we're real quick to demand an apology from our children, but when you're wrong and you're wrong, apologize to your children. and then lastly with parenting is remember that your child wants to make you proud. Yeah. They may not want to make you proud in the same way that you want them to make you proud.
Oh my God, say that again.
They want to make you proud. They may not want to make you proud in the same way that you want them to make you proud, but they ultimately do. It's just like when we put an intention out there in the universe, if you're a person that puts intentions out, you put the intention out. You don't say, I want a Ferrari. You say, I want reliable transportation. Now, if that ends up manifesting into the Ferrari of your dreams, so be it. If that ends up manifesting into you winning a free year-long bus pass, so be it. That is the same. The intention was reliable transportation. So with your children, the intention with them almost always is, I want to make my mom and my dad proud.
Yeah. Yep. They want that love. They want that affirmation. They want that, validation.
Yeah.
And it might look different than what you want them to do in the moment.
Yeah. And that goes for all your relationships. Like, there are friendships I have and relationships I have where the person is not necessarily doing what I want them to do. Imagine that. Yes, I do like.
Oh, we can't control everything.
Just do it my way, and then like everything will be cool. But that's ego coming in again. And ultimately, the only intention I want for all the people that I love is to be the best version of themselves.
Yes.
Be the best version of themselves. People, mentioning shout out to Renee Brown. There is a video. If you follow me on Facebook, you already know I post this thing like once a month. It's a snippet of a conversation between Brene Brown and Russell Brand. If you can watch the whole hour-and-a-half long conversation, watch it. But this 7-minute snippet is called "Are People Doing the Best They Can?" Mm-hmm. And if you just Google Brene Brown, Russell Brand, you will find this little 7-minute snippet. And I promise you, it will change your perspective on relationships. It will change your perspective on people, because at the end of the day, all of us, me, you, your mama, your cousins, everybody, we are all honestly doing the best we can. It may not look the way you want it to look. Your sister's life may not look the way you want it to look, but understand that your sister is doing the best she can. Your husband is doing the best he can. Your ex is doing the best he can. Just that's really what it comes down with relationships for me.
That's huge.
Did we freeze? Uh-oh. Did we freeze? Let's see. Did we freeze? Uh-oh, did we freeze? Uh-oh. Oh, shit. Oh, hi, hold on. Wait, Renee's gonna come back. She can't. Let's see. I think she's coming back. Oh, I think we lost Renee. She should be coming back really soon. But while we're waiting for Renee to come back, since we're still live, hi. Wow, that came up real close. Okay, so I'll put up the participants list so I can watch for her. Okay, so while we're waiting, I will just recap a bit about the friendship friendships, and we'll talk a little bit about the professional ones. So with personal relationships, with your relationships, it's important to make sure you're hearing each other, that you're listening with intention with people. And that's with anyone. If it's your significant other, if it's some Yahoo on the internet that's talking from a political viewpoint that you don't agree with, whether it's your best friend or if it's your children, like just make sure that you're listening with intention to people. And then secondly, with friendships and with people, with all of your personal relationships, understand that every person is a lesson. Again, Soul Contracts by Carolyn Myss, and that's Miss MYSS, I think is how her last name is spelled. Caroline Myss. Great book about, it's called Soul Contracts, and it talks a lot about how every person you meet is a lesson. And then also just remembering that everyone is doing the best they can. Everyone, honestly, even the person that you have, think about your most challenging relationship that you have, your most challenging friendship that you have. That person is doing the best that they can. Now, they may not be doing your idea of what the best is. And trust me, I am definitely in touch with that feeling, but they are doing the best that they can. So make sure that you're keeping that in mind when you're engaging your most challenging relationships. And then, let's see, and then with parenting, apologize to your babies. Apologize to them when you're wrong. If they do something and you snap off and you yell at them, or if you call them a name, or you say something that is just not serving, apologize to your children. Make sure that you're being accountable to your children, just as you would with a friend. If you had an argument with a friend and you called them out of their name, you would apologize to them, or vice versa. If they called you out of your name, you would expect an apology. The same rules apply with your children. So apologize with your children. Make sure that you're instilling trust in your children so that you can have those conversations with them that aren't the easiest to have. And also remember that your children ultimately just want to make you proud. So that's personal relationships. And I'm gonna see if let's see if I'm gonna see if Renee's going to come back, because we're still live. So let me see if Renee is coming back. Please stay on and stay watching. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Let's see. I'm gonna text her real quick. Okay. Okay. All right. I've got a message out to Renee, so hopefully she'll be joining us back up in just a minute. Oh, there she is. I was like, I'm gonna keep
talking. I was watching you from my phone. I'm like, I think
keep talking. All right. Oh shit. Are you? Oh no, you froze again. Hold on.
It just.
Okay. Like, there we go. That's okay. We still got some time here because we got about 15 minutes. All right. Professional relationships. All right. Oh, froze again. Okay. Are you there? Okay.
I'm here.
You're here. All right. Let's get into professional relationships.
Yes.
Now, since I did some talking here, I think I'm going to bring this over to you, because as an educator, you are experiencing some unique professional conflicts. So let's kind of talk a little bit about that. Let's kick that off when we talk about professional relationships.
Well, what's interesting, of course, is we talk about being in your own personal bubble. And one thing about the timing of all this is, of course, that I get to rage or accept things from the comfort of my home rather than, being at a staff meeting and getting
Right.
all this information. Um, but I am definitely, all teachers across the state of Iowa for sure, and other states that are in a bit more turmoil than others regarding return to school. Um, we're in a place where we're not in control of what our work is going to look like.
Mhm.
Um, so it feels disempowering. Ultimately, we all have choices, which I think you're seeing a lot of teachers make some really hard decisions about what they want to do or not do. But ultimately, you have to work from a center that believes that um, that I don't. I guess we need to take out. there's two things happening, right? Like I have my microcosm of my school, my
Mhm.
staff, my incredible administrators, our great school board, and the leadership that we have in the district, who I know have our best interests at heart, and they're supporting us. And that's what keeps me going when things from above that even are, trying to micromanage and control things.
Mhm.
So having to, um, again, it's the same concept or idea that you have to believe that the other person's intentions are good, or at least not solely out to,
That they're doing the best they can.
that they're doing it. Yes, thank you. That's much better. That they're doing the best they can with what they got, what they know. And that ultimately, at the end of the day, I can decide how much I'm going to let it affect me and everything else in my life if, the coworker, boss is, um, shaking me up.
Right. Yeah. And when it comes to being spiritual in the workplace, sometimes because spiritual practice is very private, and it's one thing to tell your family and friends, hey, I'm going to go meditate for 20 minutes, or hey, I'm going to go hit this yoga class, or to just start praying in the middle of a conversation, which has happened to me. But at the workplace, it's a little different because you want to keep up that professional visage, but you're not sure how to fit your spiritual practice into it.
Right.
And one thing that I've done with my workplace, as you mentioned at the top of the talk, I am a librarian at North Liberty Library. Love Light and Lit, Mondays at noon. Tune in on the Facebook page. Shameless plug. One thing that I do is I try to bring my practice into my workplace. So right at my desk, I keep a little stack of tarot cards and I keep some stones. And that's kind of how I express my spirituality. If expressing your spirituality is reading from a devotional book every day, make sure you have that devotional book, at your desk. If it is, being physical with the body and doing yoga, then that's something that I did at a former workplace, was I kept a yoga mat near me, so that, because we had like a courtyard at my former workplace, so I would just, on a nice day, I would just take my yoga mat out and just do 15 minutes of sun salutations or something. So finding a way to keep the peace in your workplace, whether you're working in another physical location or working from home, is so beneficial,
Yeah.
because you want to make sure that you're keeping your spiritual practice up front and center. And
Well,
then
and
yeah.
I did things like that for, like, at school when we were in the building.
Yeah.
Something as simple as, um, if I'm feeling kind of all the buzz and not really centered, or
Mhm.
where I'll take, when the kids are also working on something, I will take that time to just even do something like, 4 count breathing, uh,
Yeah.
where I'm just gonna focus on the present moment and get back to center that way. And then even relationally, one of the things that I often do is look at the students, kind of individually, especially if I'm having a challenging student in particular. I will look at them and remind myself of like not the challenge, but really kind of seeing who they are. Mm-hmm. Ego aside, right? These are all children. They're all special. They're all loved. You know, it's like taking that moment to remind myself of that, you know, sort of universal connection. You know.
Yeah.
And so that is one thing that I
yeah, and be kind to yourself. I think that especially in a professional and when you're in your workplace, it's so hard for us to be kind to ourselves. It's hard to be kind to yourself in general, but when you're at work, you have the added challenge of trying to get work done. Like you have tasks that you need to do. You have to teach the children. I have to make sure the art wall is set up. I have to make sure that part-time staff is, that they have a sufficient workload. You know, we all have responsibilities and tasks that we have to do professionally. So it's not all about, when I say, find a way to bring your spiritual practice in, part of that is also being mindful that, hey, you're doing a lot right now. Like you're trying to bring your highest self to this workplace to serve others. Yeah. And you and I are both in positions of service to the general public. And so there's that added challenge. So if you are in a public role, if you are in a public service role as a public servant, be kind to yourself. This is a tough time for everyone. This is all new. This working from home, this remote learning, all of this is new. So be kind to yourself. And that in itself, being kind to yourself is a spiritual practice because it's not something that comes naturally to us.
Yeah, for sure.
We are kinder to a disenfranchised person on the street than we are to ourselves. So it's very important to be kind to yourself. And also, as you mentioned, making a conscious decision of how much of work you're going to bring home. Yeah. And sometimes vice versa. Yeah. Work-life balance is kind of a buzzword that became a thing within the past decade or so, or 2 decades or so. But what work-life balance is recognizing that sometimes you're going to come home pissed off from work. Right. Sometimes you're going to come to work pissed off from something at home. Mm-hmm. Recognizing that is the balance. And being kind to yourself when you're in those moments is a spiritual practice. It's not always there are people who can cut off work. When they walk in the door, they're cutting off work. And I am not one of those people. My husband is not one of those people. And that's why it's important to extend grace to yourself. Mm. Extend grace to yourself. Talk to yourself like you're talking to a friend. If a friend came to you and said, man, this thing happened at work and now I'm at home and blah, 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 what would you say to that friend? You would say, hey, I understand, relax, if you want to talk, let's talk for a few minutes and then you can go back to doing what you need to do. But, let's just talk for a minute and see what's happening. Say that same thing to yourself. Take breaks from work. Take your breaks from work. Do not eat at your desk. Yeah. I am guilty. I literally just did this 2 days ago. Do not eat at your desk. Yeah. If you have a lunch break, take your lunch break. I don't care if you're going to go sit out in your car and eat, the weather's beautiful. So that's a perfect antidote. Right. But take your breaks. If you have 15-minute breaks that you're contracted to have in your job agreement, take your breaks. Yeah. Yeah. Don't be the time martyr of you have to just keep going because there's so much to do. You know what? It's going to be there. Yeah. Those 15 minutes, your stuff is still going to be there. It certainly is. It absolutely is. So just take your breaks. find a way to bring your spiritual practice into work in a way that is all yours, whether that's, having a little deck of tarot cards at your desk like me, bringing a devotional, like if you have your Bible, if you're a Christian and you want to have your Bible so that you can thumb through your favorite Bible verses, bring that. Bring your yoga mat. If you want to do a couple yoga poses during your break, do that. Find a way to bring your spiritual practice into work that's physical, something tangible, so that you'll have something to work with. And find a way to understand that you need to be kind to yourself and extend grace to yourself when work-life balance gets a little shaky.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes.
I want to circle back to the tarot cards at work because yeah, this is one of my favorite things that I continue to learn from you. But like, how do you use them at work?
Okay, so like I work in the library, so it's rather quiet. And no one said anything yet because people are kind. But like I'll have my cards with me, and if I don't have time to do my cards at my altar because I have two altars. I have one altar in my home office downstairs, which I'm downstairs in my guest room right now, but across the way is my office, and then I have an altar right by my nightstand. I have a nightstand altar, and I have tarot cards there that I use in the morning, but if I don't have time because my workout ran longer, I did my face, then I go to work and I do tarot cards there. So I like wait until it's a little noisier and then I'll shuffle them. I'm so terrible. I'm sure my coworkers are watching this right now like, oh, that's what that sound is. It's me shuffling my tarot cards at my desk. But yeah, I have a little bitty deck. I just shuffle them. I put them up there, and I have like a full altar on my shelf at work.
Yes, yeah, with the shelf right.
Yes, I have like a feather. I have stones. I have all four elements represented like a true witch, and I've got like books. So it's not too overt. Like it's not like ooh witchy. But it is there, and it brings me comfort because it's like if I'm having a hard day and I need some rose quartz because I'm mad about something, like let me just grab my rose quartz. If I'm feeling like I need to clear my mind because I'm doing too many things at once, I have my clear quartz that I can grab, and it's just nice to have that there. Some days I don't even pay any attention to it, and some days I get to work, put my books down, put my bags down, and go right to the altar. Right. But knowing that it's there is just a comfort for me professionally. So yeah, I use them at work. So I just do a little soft shuffle and then just do my cards. I'm like, okay,
I love it.
That's enough of that.
Well, I think
people like fell.
Oh my gosh.
This is such an enlightening talk today. Yes. Okay. So then the last thing that we want to talk about today is, because we're running a little bit over, but that's fine because people are still sticking with us. Here. We want to talk about individual. The most important spiritual practice is with yourself. How would you describe your current spiritual practice with yourself?
What question?
This week was kind of a jacked up week, but in general, if it wasn't this week.
Yeah, well, I think like you, I pull from a lot of different parts. And so I don't have just like one thing that I do all the time. So like more recently, I've been learning more and doing more tarot cards. At some point in a day, I will try to do some sort of meditation, but not like, I'm really learning that meditation doesn't have to be anything except doing nothing. Like
yeah, you mentioned 4 square breathing, which is fantastic. For those who don't know what 4 square breathing that Renee mentioned, it's basically inhaling for a count of 4, holding for a count of 4, exhaling for a count of 4, holding for a count of 4. And man, 4 square breathing for me is the quickest way for me to get recentered.
Yep. And I learned that from Dr. Tanya English. She taught me that, and it was
yes,
it reminds me, that is the way to do it. Or I'll the other thing I do, I play music, and then specifically like if I need to chill out, I don't even know how you say it, the binaural.
Oh, binaural.
Yes. Those I almost every day that is something that I listen to. Sometimes I'll fall asleep to it too because it helps quiet the mind. I have a very busy brain.
Yes, binaural beats are so good. I listen to I have a Spotify account, so I use a already pre-made playlist that Spotify made of binaural beats. And when I tell you it grounds you, it clears you. Like sometimes I don't want to do the guided meditation. Like some days I don't want to hear Louise Hay, rest in peace Louise Hay, but sometimes I'm not really trying to hear her tell me to breathe and all of that. It's nice when I want the instruction. Yes. But some days you just want to tune out and do binaural beats. And that is great that you have a variety of methods because one thing that we said at the beginning of the talk is, it's important to establish what works for you, but also experiment. That's part of the self-exploration of, your spiritual practice as an individual is to explore things. Like right now, I'm teaching myself runes. And if anyone is not familiar with what runes are, it's another form of divination that's basically engraved stones based on, I think it's like Viking alphabet. I'm still learning, and that's so awesome.
I had runes when I was in high school. I don't know what I did with them or.
I got mine from Illuminations in Cedar Rapids. Shout out to Cedar Rapids right now. They are really trying to rebuild after the storm. So shout out to Cedar Rapids. Shout out to Illuminations and Cedar Rapids. They shipped me runes. I saw them on their Facebook page and I was like, can you ship those to me? And they did. And I'm learning runes right now, and I'm not sure what that will look like as an addition to my spiritual practice, but I'm having fun experimenting because a lot of spiritual practice as an individual really is about having fun. Yeah. I mean, you get so many demands from your, we talked about the relationships. There's so many demands from your personal relationships. There's so many demands from your professional relationships. With yourself, for goodness sake, extend some grace to yourself. Have some fun with yourself. Because if you can't have fun with just yourself and exploring your spirituality in a fun, exciting way, I'm not sure where else you can have fun with it at, because everyone else has expectations. Yes. You want you one way. Your spouse wants you to be another way. Your friends want you to be another way. Your boss wants you to be another way. Your coworkers want you to be another way. Ease up on the expectations that you have with yourself, especially when you're exploring your spiritual practice and what that looks like. So that's good that you got like a variety of things.
Yeah. I like it. I love that. That grace. I mean, we talk to ourselves. So not
the judgment. One book that I am not afraid to say changed my perspective on self-judgment is Judgment Detox by Gabby Bernstein. Anyone who follows me on Facebook knows I am a Gabby devotee. I proudly pay her $20 a month to be a part of her miracle membership. Yes, this is the thing that I do with my money. I give it to Gabby Bernstein, and she gives me
energy.
Yes, hey, she's got to get her money. I'm not mad at her. And what she does, it's honestly a great investment for me in my spiritual life, because one thing that she drives home with Judgment Detox is to witness judgment without judgment. Witness yourself without judgment. How many of us are witnessing ourselves without the self-judgment?
Yeah. Probably not very many, or at least the percentage of time is pretty low. I like to think of it, I like to use the term wonder or curiosity, because it allows you to think about the judgments you might be making, but it like removes some of that.
It removes some of that sting. And I think that that's important because our inner voice, I mean, some of us have some really mean inner voices. I mean, some of us have expectations of ourselves that we wouldn't dare put on other people. And then you have people like me who have high expectations of myself and of others. No, you can do it too. Why aren't you doing it? This is a problem for me. So, and all of that is just self-judgment, all of that is ego, all of that, and none of it is serving you. None of it. Yeah. So witness yourself without judgment. Think about what the one thing that Brene Brown talks about is guilt versus shame. Now, there is an accountability aspect. Be accountable for yourself when you make a mistake, but understand whether or not you're practicing guilt or shame, because guilt is, I did something bad. I made a mistake. Shame is, I am bad. I am a mistake.
That's a very keen, differentiation there.
Yeah, if you Google Brene Brown guilt, shame, she talks about the differences. And it really, when you really take a look at how that's showing up in your inner voice, then you'll know, do you tell yourself, damn, I made a mistake. Damn, I messed up. Or do you tell yourself, I am messed up. I am a mistake. I am bad. That is the key between guilt versus shame. Guilt is something we're going to feel, because guilt is the trigger that tells us, okay, I made a mistake, but now I can make it right, or I can attempt to make it right. Shame keeps you locked in. It locks you in. It says, I made a mistake because I'm stupid and I'm bad and I don't know what I'm doing. And then you stay locked in. I know so many people, several of them, people that I love, who are just locked in a shame cycle where they have failure to launch into their truer selves because they are so locked in shame about mistakes that they made.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to exercise the difference between guilt and shame. Watch how you're talking to yourself. If you wouldn't say that to a friend, if you wouldn't say that to someone you love, why on earth would you say it to yourself? Yeah. That individual, that's why I put that last in the talk, because that's some of the hardest stuff, man. It's how you're talking to yourself.
And it goes deep. I mean, it's like, and so many of these are patterns of thought that just become habit. So we may not even be aware of how we're talking to ourselves, because it's just so, like, that's what we're used to.
In some cases, the inner voice that you're hearing may be a parent. It may be an ex. It may be someone who had a toxic place in your life. You never know. Like, that inner voice, more than likely, that inner voice, if your inner voice is corrupted with negativity, it more than likely is an echo of a real voice that once existed in your life. And that's where you have to do the work to excise that from your consciousness. Because your intuition, getting to know who you really are, your intuition, ego, negative inner voice, all of that can drown out your intuition, your soul's voice that's been with you literally since the day you were born. So just really do watch what you're saying to yourself. And one thing that I like to do is, if I'm in a situation where, I'm feeling the thing, I'm in the thing, my thorn's been touched, I'm in the gunk, and I was in this last week with everything that went on this week. I was in the gunk. My anxiety showed up front and center this past week. It was, I would have to say, of all of the terrible weeks that 2020 has given us, this past week was probably the worst for me. There was just so much going on with the storm and work pressures, and just everything was just a mess. And one thing that I try to do is, when in doubt, say thank you. It sounds cheesy, but getting yourself back into a place of gratitude can really help you to release, at least momentarily, some of those self-judgments that you have, some of that negative inner voice. One thing that I like that Gabby Bernstein talks about, and she got this from Wayne Dyer. If you're old school, spiritual, you know who Wayne Dyer is. God rest his soul. But one thing Wayne Dyer taught her, because he was her mentor, one thing that he taught her was called gratitude rampages, a rampage of gratitude, where you literally just grab a piece of paper and you just start writing down everything you're grateful for. I'm grateful my mother's still alive. I'm grateful for my kids are healthy. I'm grateful COVID hasn't touched my doorstep. I'm grateful for the fries I got from Five Guys today. I'm grateful that I get to, that I get to go to the grocery store. Be grateful for that. I mean, yes, going to the grocery store can be a hassle. Be grateful for the abundance that you have, that you can walk in a grocery store, pick food out from a shelf, and pay for it. Because not everybody can do that. Be grateful that you have a store that has food right now. If you're in this area, the Hy-Vee in Iowa City on First, they just restocked yesterday. They were out of power for days. Be grateful. Do you have electricity in your home? There's a lot of people in Cedar Rapids right now.
I have never been so grateful for light.
Yes. Get grateful. And that's something I had to tell my kids, because this past week we were only out for 18 hours. Ooh, but oh my goodness. Yeah, exactly. And once it came back on and the Wi-Fi wasn't on,
yeah, forget.
Especially my son. And I just told them, there are people who do not have electricity right now.
Yeah. Like who have freeze in their living room.
Get grateful. So when in doubt, when that inner voice sounds too loud and you're in the throes of anxiety or depression or any kind of mental issue that you may be having, or maybe it's not even a mental health issue, maybe you're just in a mood, honey, maybe you're just mad about something, get grateful. Get in a state of gratitude, because there's this one saying that Franklin Covey wrote. He wrote the 7 Signs of Highly Successful People. One thing that he said was, if you got together with everyone else in the world and threw your problems in a pile, you would grab your problems back as quick as possible.
Right.
Period. Yeah. Period. That's a fact. So get grateful. Get grateful. Find what suits you and experiment with your spiritual life. Have fun with it. Experiment with things. Maybe tarot sounds a little too way out for you. Okay. Well, think about maybe doing some appreciation quotes, or doing some affirmations. Google affirmations and see if you can come up with some affirmations that you can do with yourself. Have fun with it. Also, watch your inner voice. Be kind to yourself. Know the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is I did something bad. Shame is I am bad. Guilt gives you an opportunity to be accountable and reach higher and fix that mistake, but shame locks you in. And when in doubt, just say thank you. Be grateful.
I'm so grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you.
You have made this day immensely better.
Likewise, my friend, this was good. And I'm just so happy that I get to be a part of this platform that you're building. I think what you're doing, not only as an educator, which is how we met, is so inspiring, but Midwest Elevation and building this platform. I know that you had another vision for this before COVID hit, but I think what you've done is created this platform in spite of that pandemic, and still created an avenue for folks like me to come on and talk. And I am forever grateful for you for that.
Hey, thank you. Well, technology issues aside, and at one point my dog was snoring. I don't know if anybody heard it, but but this is real life. We gotta embrace it all. It's all at once, all happening, and all for the best. All the hard lessons and the joys and everything that comes together. I'm so grateful for having you here with us today. I know there's some questions in the feed. Maybe we'll drum up some information about runes, because I think you're sparking interest from other people.
Yes, runes. I would say I know nothing about runes. I'm learning, but what I've been doing is I've been checking out a couple of YouTube videos. I got a book from Coralville Public Library on them, and I got a couple of books on my Kindle for them just to learn. But yes, let's all, if you're interested in learning runes, absolutely hit up the comments and we can reach out and we can just learn this foolishness together, because I need another outlet. I'm trying to have fun with my spiritual life, right?
That's right. That's right. So yes, we will keep finding our spiritual practice and keep embedding it into all the pieces of our lives so that we can all just be the best version we can be at the time.
Yes. That's the highest version you can reach.
The highest version we can be. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of this beautiful day, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Renee.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.